secret for you. Huddle up. Huddle up! We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. Poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. To quote from Whitman, "O me, O life of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, what good amid these, O me, O life?" Answer, that you are here, that life exists and identity, that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. That the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. Will your verse be? Thank you, boys. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to 5225, week 39, my favorite movies. And today is my birthday. And we're talking about my favorite movie. Now, if you haven't watched any of the episodes so far this week, I've been going through my favorite movies, one video every day, talking about movies that I love. And I've had guests on each episode, people that also love the movie that I'm talking about. And I thought, why not get someone who'd never seen the movie before I asked them to be on the show? So Kelsey was like, "Hey, let me watch it and get back to you." And then she said, "Yeah, I'll do it," which is a good sign. But I have no idea how she feels about this movie. So hello, Kelsey. How are you today?
Hi, Matt. First of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm so honored to be here. Thanks for asking me, even though I have famously not seen Dead Poet Society until this video. But I don't mind, branching out, exploring new things, especially for my good friends. And yeah, I'm excited to be introduced to all different facets of cinema. And
Okay.
I was very excited to watch this one because it's an iconic one. There's iconic moments, iconic characters. There's like an iconic kind of like atmosphere that comes along with this movie.
Mhm.
So I'm glad to have checked it off my list for you.
Well, excellent. Well, I'm glad you have too. And any opportunity I get to get people to watch my favorite movie and then get to talk about my favorite movie is great. I've talked about this movie all over the internet, so I'm not going to go super deep into. I'm going to talk about what I love about it, but I don't want to dwell specifically on my love of it because you can find that all over the place. I will just briefly talk about how I discovered this movie and. When I was 13, well, we can go even further back. When I was a kid, my mom used to take me to the video store, me and my sister to the video store every weekend. We go to the video store every weekend. Each of us would pick out a movie that we'd watch for that. We'd go on Friday. We'd pick out a movie that each of us would watch that weekend. I'd usually rent Terminator 2 over and over again. But we would get to we would just go in there and like peruse the aisles, which when I later became a video store employee, was awesome because it felt like home to me. And I do lament the loss of video stores now that they just aren't available anymore. I miss going in on a Friday night and just walking the wall and stuff like that. That's not what this is about though. But I come across this movie several times during my perusal, and and every time I would see it, I would be like, "This looks like a sports movie. It's not for me." And that is because on the cover, it's all of the guys carrying Mr. Keating wearing their sweaters, their soccer sweaters,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, this looks like a sports thing. It's not for me." Um, so I just didn't think about it for a long time. But then when I was 13, I went over to my uncle's house. My uncle is like my favorite person in the world. My uncle Mike. I grew up without a dad. My dad left when I was 2. I'd see him on during the summer and some holidays, but basically my life was devoid of a father. So my uncle kind of filled in that role uh, in my life, and then as I grew up and I was wanting to learn things, he would be like a mentor to me in pretty much anything that I needed help in. And so anyway, this dude is like he's my favorite person in the world. And I was at his house and I saw he had a copy of Dead Poets Society in his VHS collection. And I was like, I've never seen that. I'd always looked at it, but it just didn't seem like something I'd be interested in. And he said, "You will love this." And immediately just popped it in the VHS player, the VCR, and we watched it. And he was right, because from the time I was 13 until this very moment, Dead Poets Society has been my favorite movie. It was that on that day, I was like, well, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I think one of the things that at that age, especially, that really connected with me is see, Robin Williams had been in my life my whole life. In fact, some of my earliest members of understanding comedy come from Robin Williams. And so like he had always been like this presence in my life and an important one for me. And then suddenly I'm seeing this movie that told me something that I'd never whether I'd been told it or not, I'd never believed it or felt that it was something that that was actually for me. And for the first time, it felt like someone was speaking to me about this, and that is, you can think whatever you want to think, which seems obvious, but when I'm watching that, I'm like, he's right. I can think whatever I want to think, and I have I'm the only person who's in charge of me and what I do and what I think, which was just this revelation. And so I again, as I said, it became my favorite movie, and I have held that with me to this day. But now we get to the fun part, but also the kind of scary part, and that is, Kelsey, how did you feel about Dead Poets Society?
Um, well, Matt, I really enjoyed it. I think you
Oh, good.
can I'll say that. I'll let you relax a little bit. I'm not like a monster. I didn't watch it and be like, "What was this? This is such a waste of my time." No, I thought that it was like such a comforting watch and such like a wholesome watch. It makes sense that this would be your favorite movie of all time, and I'm sure for other people like in the realm of their favorite movies as well, just because I think that it's just such a good like strangely, even though it does get very sad and tragic in it, I found
Mhm,
it to be like rather comforting, especially during the first half of the film.
mhm,
Because everything kind of like builds up to like really this last like 20 minutes. So you do get a good chunk of time where you can kind of just like live in this really joyful, like, friendship between these 6 gentlemen who are exploring different assets of, culture and art and poetry, obviously. And like you kind of like watch these guys like really like just express themselves like freely and not in fear of judgment or in fear of an authority figure telling them that they're doing the wrong thing. And I just thought that
Mhm.
that was the thing that stuck out to me the most, is that I just feel like I got to watch this like group of guys like kind of connect with their feminine side a little bit and not
Oh yeah, yeah.
afraid to do these like, like really feminine things together, or things that would be viewed as mostly feminine or soft or weak, or anything like that. And
Right.
one of the other things that I, like, walked away from with this movie, I was like, not to sound, like, jaded and like a cynic, but I'm like, "Damn, they really, like, don't make a lot of movies like this one anymore."
Yeah. I feel like that's a phrase that gets so overused, and usually when people say that, they are they are wrong. They're not thinking about other movies that are just like that they make.
Right.
I actually just used that phrase the other day, and even when I said it, I was like, I know this is overused, but they just don't make movies like this anymore. And
Yeah.
then even at that point, I cited a movie that was similar. But it make you're right. It's a different type of movie than what you would expect today, and a movie that is saying something to the degree that this one is, or to that is covering a subject matter that is happening. This would generally today would feel a lot heavier, and they would probably go with, it'd be a little bit more stylized, or whatever. So I think you're right. There is a quality to this movie that you just don't find in movies today. And that will be true in 30 years of the movies that they make today. And that's just the nature of everything. But you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. There is something about this that that's just different than what we get today.
Because I just feel like even though, like, Neil's death happens and then Mr. Keaton is let go, and that's kind of like how the third act kind of resolves, it feels very obviously unsatisfying, because like you're watching like the hero of the story kind of lose. Um, but it just feels like very slice of life. And I
Mhm.
think, like, just sitting here thinking, I was like, what movie like evokes kind of like a similar feeling to me that this one did? The only one, strangely enough, that's coming to me right now, which I'm not even fully committing to comparing the two, because again, I just think that this one is just more like wholesome in every way. But the other one that I'm thinking about right now is, the title is actually escaping me in this moment. Um, The Edge of 17
Okay.
with Haley Steinfeld, just because
Mhm.
that one feels also very slice of lifey. It follows the you know trials and tribulations of a teenage girl, and nothing ever really feels like fully resolved in that
Mhm.
movie, even though, like, she may share some moments with some characters that she had conflicts with throughout the story. It doesn't feel like it all gets wrapped up like very neatly in a big bow at the
Mhm.
end, which is where you're kind of left with this one. And, you know, it's, yeah, you watch this moment of them all get on their desks at the end and say, "Oh, captain, my captain." But at the end of the day, it's like this school is still going to be very stuffy and limiting for these guys without Mr. Keating there, and he's still no longer the teacher there. So it's
Right.
like you can celebrate this moment, this powerful moment that they all have where they finally speak up for themselves, but then you kind of remember like, oh, well, Neil's still dead, he's still not the teacher, and this school still sucks.
Right.
Not to walk away with like a negative view with
No,
it and
no.
everything.
No, that's a reasonable place to be with it. I would say that with that ending, I think the win in that situation, yes, it does feel like there does feel like a lot of loss there. I would say that the win is not just the moment, but really the a teacher or anybody who goes into a profession where they are actively trying to make some sort of a difference. They'll say, if I change one kid, or if I help one kid, then it was worth it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of how this feels, is that, like, yeah, Mr. Keating's not going to be there to help these kids, and hopefully, you know, especially back then, he's definitely able to get a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to continue, do his thing. That it might change the way he does it, unfortunately, but the idea that in that moment those kids were showing you have changes. That's why when he leaves, he says, "Thank you, boys."
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that moment, he has clearly changed his voice, and whether that is a lasting change, we don't know. And I like to think that at least in Ethan Hawke's character's life, that is a lasting change. At least that that he is better than he was when he started, in that class.
Hmm.
Um, Speaking of the changes that these boys go through, one thing that I always love, and I don't think I fully grasped it. I definitely didn't fully grasp it back when I first saw it, but over the years, as I've watched this movie over and over again, one thing that really always sticks out to me is um, uh, Nawanda, Charlie Dalton, Nawanda,
Hmm.
who does this because he's a rebel. He wants to do the Dead Poet Society because it is going against the system. He wants to follow Mr. Keating because he's a rebel and it goes against the system. Um, but in doing that, he actually becomes a better, he actually is changed, and I love
Hmm.
that about his character, that he's initially doing it for the wrong reasons, but he gets as much out of it as anybody else gets out of it. One thing I love about his character and how his character ends is that he's the only one who gets kicked out, other than Mr. Keating, because of the whole incident.
Hmm.
And at the end, when they have all the boys sign the thing saying that they did the thing, and which is heartbreaking because none of them would, but their parents are there and they're going to get kicked out. It's their future, and Mr.
Hmm.
Keating would want them to do that.
Mm.
He wants them, no, forget everything, take care of your future, like that kind of thing.
Hmm.
That he would want that, so you don't really blame those guys. But Charlie Dalton clearly wasn't going to do that. The funny thing is that when they hand uh, him the paper and you actually see that it's on there and you see that the other boys have signed, there is not a Charlie Dalton space there for a signature, uh,
Hmm.
because there's no chance. It's like they knew Charlie Dalton was never going to sign this paper,
Yeah.
which I really love. Which one of the boys' stories was your favorite? Like their what
Oh,
they went through.
probably Knox, just because I
Mhm.
think that he had one of my favorite moments in the film where when he's pining after the girl and the whole time, and he goes to her school that day after the party and is finally like, I'm just going to tell her, like, straight to her face, confesses his feelings for her, and then reads the poem that he wrote for her. And then when he
Yeah.
gets back to school, everyone's like, how did it go? What did she say? And he almost said something along the lines of, like, it doesn't matter what she said because
Mhm.
I did it, I was brave enough to do it. And I just think like that almost feels like the entire message of the movie is like, just put yourself out there and live life to the fullest and be completely and wholly who you are, like, throughout
Mhm.
all of it, and almost kind of live with like a no regrets mentality, just because like those are the moments that just like make life most most worth
Right.
living.
Yeah, I love that as well. It's hard for me to pick. It's like all of my kids. I can tell you my least, the one I don't care about is the dude, the rat dude, the narc, the
Yeah.
bootlicker.
That
Fuck
stupid
that guy.
ginger bitch. Yeah, fuck that
Yeah.
guy.
um I would say that if I had to pick one that I feel like I identify with the most, it's probably going to be Neil, and his is like the front and center.
Mhm.
And so that kind of makes sense. But Peter Weir, who directed this movie, has been known in the past for having uh, queer coding in his movies. Not a lot. Like, it's not a direct. I wouldn't even call it a director's trademark or anything like that.
Mm.
But he made a movie called Picnic at Hanging Rock where um, it's considered like a queer classic, but there's no gay romance in it. But it just you feel the you can like you can feel the gay coding in it. That's how
Mhm.
I feel about Neil's storyline.
Mm.
It feels like there is some queer coding in his story, and uh as a queer man, again, this is something that I didn't really it's not something I would have picked up on early, especially because that was the kind of thing that I was desperately convincing myself wasn't me. um that it feels like his story is of someone who wants to be something that he's not allowed to be,
Mhm.
and his parents even pull him out to send him to a school that will force that out of him,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. It definitely feels queer coded, so for me, it I think that his is probably my favorite of the storylines. But I just love them all. Plus, he becomes an actor. Like, he does A Midsummer Night's Dream, and a great. And here's the thing: it's easy for. It seems like it would be easy for an actor to play as though they are acting in something,
Mhm.
but his performance as Puck is as good as any performance of Puck I've ever seen, and it isn't. Robert Sean Leonard isn't playing Neil in that moment; he's playing Puck.
Mhm.
I think it's a. I want to see his full version of A Midsummer Night's Dream, because his Puck is great, and every time I watch that, I'm like, this kid is talented. And yes, he's an actor. Like,
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
actor playing an actor.
That'll do it.
But when I watch it, I'm like, Neil is truly talented, and I think that lends to the tragedy. I mean, his death is tragic no matter what, but
Mhm.
just his whole story, it lends to the tragedy that when you're watching it, you're like, this is obviously what he's meant to do. And that always that's always touching, but also like really, really sad and tragic.
Yeah, yeah. No, and what makes that his performance as Puck, like, would just like add so many layers to it and so many dynamics is the fact that when his father gets there halfway through and he's just delivering that whole last monologue right to his dad, that's
Hmm.
like, can't you see, like, this isn't just a dream to me, like, this is, this has all been real for me, and if only like you could see that. And I almost like had this moment where obviously after you see the dad, watch him finally perform, you see what great of a job he does. You're like, so now he gets it, right? Now he's going to turn to him and be like, I love you, son. If you want to be an actor, like, I fully support you. And it totally, like, it gets so much worse for him. And I don't know if this was made obvious or like said at any point. I know that Mr. Keaton was a student at the school before he started
Hmm.
teaching there, but like he's the only one who like really grabs Neil, like pries him away from his father in that last moment when he's pulling him out of the theater. And he finally gets to him and is like, "Oh my gosh, like you've even left me speechless. Like that was just so amazing." And then
Hmm.
Neil's father grabs him and is like, "Keating, like stay away from my son." And I just felt like, do they know each other? Like, I was like, I feel like there's an energy here. There's a history in this moment almost.
Yeah, it's never stated in there, but there does feel like there's a familiarity in that moment. Um, the actor who plays Neil's dad, Kurtwood Smith, is so good, and a lot of people from my generation and lower remember him as the dad from that 70s show.
Yeah.
But to me, there's two. Once I saw that 70s show, I was like, oh, cool. It's the guy from Dead Poet Society and RoboCop. And in RoboCop, if people who haven't seen RoboCop, he's the villain in RoboCop, and he's so damn good in that movie. But he's just a great actor. When that moment when he finds Neil on the floor
Yeah.
and runs over and he's like, wake up, my son, that whole thing, like, there's just a switch in him, and he's obviously the same person, but just like the harsh veneer falls away, and he becomes a dad who's lost his son.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel empathy in that moment for this man that you had no empathy for until this moment. Like, it's such a good performance. I love him very much.
Yeah, what hit harder for me, Matt, was the moment when Robin Williams is going through his desk and he opens up the book and it says like to be read at the start of every DPS meeting, and it has like their whole kind of like creed that they would say. And it just, I was like, oh my God, this is what got me. I was welling up in this moment because
nice.
I was like, there's just like something about like losing a student. Obviously it does not compare to losing a son. Like that's
right.
Like that's trauma, but it's like, I don't know, like in that moment he realized kind of just how big of a difference he was actually making in these kids' lives. And the fact that like this kid wasn't even around anymore to like, kind of let that flame kind of like flourish later on into his like adulthood and everything. Like it just like, oh, and also just like seeing like Robin Williams like sad. I'm just like that imagery alone just breaks my heart.
Yeah, that moment always gets me also. It's a really powerful moment, and I think you hit the nail on the head. That in that moment he realizes like the difference he's truly made in this kid's life, or had made up until the tragedy. I think he also feels a little bit of guilt, even though in my opinion, Mr. Keating is not guilty at all. He did the right things. He told him to talk to his father. He never told him to disobey his father. He led him in the right place, and the lessons he was giving him were good lessons. So Mr. Keating is not to blame at all, but I think he probably feels some guilt in that moment also.
Yeah. I mean, it would be tough not to, like, because I just feel like when those kind of situations happen, like the first thing people want to look for is like a reason or someone to blame. And and honestly, like I was so mad about what happened that I was like, well, fuck his dad, obviously. Like it's all his fault. And then I had to like remind myself, I'm like, no, like when these situations happen, like it's no one in particular's fault. Like this is obviously a struggling person before, this action like happened, before they took action about it. And you kind of see that in his monologue that he has with Mr. Keating when they have that whole moment together when he's like, I don't know what to do. And he literally says the words like, I'm trapped. And I'm like, that was his, cry for help in that moment. And if, I guess if I were Mr. Keating, I might be beating myself up thinking like, oh my God, he told me right then and there that like things were bad for him and that I should have paid more attention and should have taken it a little more seriously in that conversation. But and then it happens, and then I just go, oh, like it was right there in the title, like Dead Poets Society. Like they like someone was gonna die. And so it was a really beautifully tragic film, and I'm really happy you introduced it to me.
Well, good. Well, good. I think that I could, just like with all these, I could go on about this movie for hours and hours. Before we go, do you have any final thoughts about the movie before we wrap this up?
Um, my last note that I took in my um notes app was, and just like that, I am so fucking sad. Um,
Hmm.
and then I just want to, this is something I said to you when you first messaged me about it. I started it and I immediately was like, oh my God, this is a great fall time watch. This might
Hmm.
be added to my fall time repertoire,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, it certainly is. Funny story about that. When I was like, you were like, "Hey, I'm gonna watch it," and I was like, "Awesome!" And you're like, "Fun fall time watch," and then you said nothing to me for days, and I was like, "Hey, Kels, have you thought about?" And I'm like, "She hated it. If she liked it, she would have come back to me."
No, no, what had happened was is that the day I started it, I don't remember what I was doing, but, like, something happened where I had to, like, immediately leave my house, and I was like, "Oh, shit, I gotta go do this thing." So I literally started it, and then I had to finish, like, the second half today.
Okay.
So that's what happened. I didn't hate it, I was thoroughly enjoying it.
Well, and then whenever I was like, "Hey, did you ever? What do you
Y
think?" And you were
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and you even said, "You're like Matt. I was thoroughly enjoying it, and I had responsibilities. I'm sorry." I was like,
Y
"Okay, no, it's fine."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, and I'm at that moment. I'm like, I'm gonna have to do this video alone. I can't. We're getting too late. But okay. Well, yeah. I really appreciate you giving it a shot. Number one, coming on here and talking with me about it. As you know, you become one of my best friends, and so it's important for me that you know who I am, and this movie is part of who I am, and uh so yeah, it was important to me that you were able to see this, and I'm glad you finally did.
Love.
Love. Okay, well, you at home, talk to me in the comments. Do you love Dead Poet Society? If you don't, you'll make me sad, but I would still like to know what it is you don't like about it. Um, have you seen the other movies? I have a full week of films that I talk about. My favorite movies. Have you seen those videos? Have you seen those movies? If you haven't, go watch them. But talk to Kelsey and I in the comments. Tell us what you think. What do you think about what we thought? Oh, I need to hold on. Before we go, I have to talk about next week. Next week, I am watching, because it's the start of my it's the official start of my October watching, and so all 4 weeks are going to be horror related in some way, or spooky season related in some way. And the first week of October, I'm going to be watching non-horror movies, which I have talked about in the past on other things, but these are basically movies that are not really horror movies, but when you watch them, you go, "That's terrifying," or uh, "That scared me," even though that may not be their intention, or maybe it is their intention, but it's still like something that's not horror. So any horror-ish movie that is not in the horror genre is up for grabs for me, and that's really up to my interpretation. But talk to me in the comments. Tell me, what are some of your favorite non-horror horror movies? For Kelsey and myself, happy birthday to me. Talk to me in the comments.